Hey everyone, welcome to How to Founder. You're going to notice that we are one short today. Chris wasn't able to make it, and Chris and I have a standing rule that if one of us can't make it, we get to insult the other one. And so I'm going to play the contrarian point of view like I always do and just say, Chris, I miss you, and we'll see you later this week. I'm not insulting you. So there, have that. Take that. All right, let's start with the episode. So Hook, in 1909, St. Elmo Lewis pioneered the AID framework: attention, interest, desire, action, changing sales forever. You'll remember it from the great show starring Alec Baldwin, ABC, and AIDA. While the methods evolved, the perception of sales and pushy and the perception of sales always persisted as being pushy. But what if selling wasn't about pressure, but connection? What if it could even feel good? And today I have a great guest to talk. So it's not just me, thankfully. I have a guest, Debra Bowers. Debra is a sales and marketing guru, mindset coach, and host of the podcast. My favorite name of all podcasts, Heals with Deals. It's a great name of a podcast. She's here to talk about sales strategy, growth, and how she turned her own healing journey into a platform for empowering women and entrepreneurs to thrive. First of all, welcome, Debra. Nice to meet you. And before we jumped on, Debra was telling me about her background. Can you give me a short, give us a short, how'd you get here?
Well, I took the long way around. Honestly, there's like shortcuts, and I avoided all the shortcuts in getting here. I'm 58, just turned 58. I'm older than I look. And I grew up here in Oklahoma, in a very small town in Northwest Oklahoma. Then, went to high school, was a smart kid, an athlete, rebellious. And I went to Oklahoma State University, graduated there, and right after graduation, I got married. I moved to Edmond, Oklahoma, which is a suburb of Oklahoma City, and went directly into sales and marketing, and spent a significant amount of time, about 20 years, working in corporate America, running marketing departments and sales departments. And in my second marriage, ended up with 4 kids under the age of 7. And you can't raise that many kids and both of you work 60 hours a week. Not if you expect your kids to grow up and be great adults and not criminals and bothering being problem people, toxic people. And so I sacrificed a lot during that time to raise them. And I ended up adopting my great nephew also. He's 23. He's the youngest now. And they're great kids, great adults. And I'm proud of everything that they've done and of raising them. I worked hard at it and was good at it, but I really kind of lost myself in that. I think a lot of women do. We end up putting everyone in front of ourselves. When you're a mom, your kids are definitely everything they need. It's more important than what you need. And that's true typically with spouses. And then I also took care of my mom when she had cancer. And I came to 2020 and during the shutdown, and my marriage of 19 years broke up. My kids left the nest. My youngest graduated high school in 2020. And then my mother passed away in 2021. And I really felt like I had nothing left. I didn't know where Debra was. Everything that I had identified with, frankly, for 20 years almost, was gone. It felt like it was gone. And it was really the catalyst to changing my life. And I made some non-negotiable boundaries with myself and started down that track. And here we are almost 5 years later, and I have maintained those non-negotiables and added some on the way too. But I did some consulting. I worked on a variety of different things, training, sales, and marketing stuff, and then ultimately started my advertising agency, Hexagon Media, in 2022, and then started my podcast in 2023. I am more in my own skin today than I have been in a couple of decades, and I really feel fantastic, honestly. But
So why'd you
really
graduate?
around.
Why'd you graduate? So why the podcast deals with heels? Like why are you gravitating towards sales and sales training?
I was a marketing professional in industries that were very, very competitive. So there were I was always in a sales environment. I didn't realize how good I was at sales until I was in college. And four of us girls lived in a house together. And then as they graduated, we moved new roommates in. And a boy named Dan moved in with us. And Dan was like the supervisor for the OSU Foundation. And they raised money for scholarships and academics. And anyway, we all got a job there, right? Our roommate was the boss. And so we got jobs telemarketing, and turned out that I was really good at it. My senior year, I was telemarketer of the year. I raised more money than anybody else. And so I spent the last 2 years of college really diving deep in marketing and adding that to my communications degree. And it's just where my sweet spot is. And I think having all of my basic nuts and bolts marketing experience be in industries that were highly, highly competitive gave me a very sales oriented view of marketing. And because I was not only responsible for putting the plan together and then my team executing the plan, but I also sat in that monthly meeting with all of the accountants and bean counters and talked about whether or not my plan met the revenue goals that I said that it was going to when we did the budget. And so it put me in a unique perspective. And so now when I'm working with a client, I'm really focused on sales. What is the content selling? In fact, I've been known to get into a discussion with PR people because for me, every ounce of marketing is about selling.
I want to get to that. So I definitely want to jump into tactics, but what I want to first start out with was, which should feel to most entrepreneurs, is why does reframing how we think about sales matter? So why does sales matter, and then why should we reframe how we think about it?
Sales is really important. We buy and sell things every single day. People buy coffee, they go to a specific place. Why'd you go to that new coffee place? Well, because somebody sold you on going there, and you went there, and then they sold you some really expensive coffee and you paid for it and you didn't argue with them about it. And we do it all day long. We Google things and we buy them. We buy things online on Amazon. We are a consumer-driven society and a consumer-driven economy. But for some reason, when it comes to the most important selling that we can do, that involves our livelihood, perhaps the livelihood of employees and taking care of our families and all of those things, sales is so far on the back burner. We have to dig really deep to find any sales culture at all. It's like marketing's become nothing but branding, and they're in this mode of, if you build it, they will come. And they want to sell. Yeah, we know sales is important. We want to sell, but we don't want anyone to know we're selling. And it's like sales is a dirty word. And it's not. Sales is not a dirty word. There are lots of things that can make us go out of business. We could hire the wrong people. We could pay too much for our materials and our labor. We could not even form our company wrong. We could screw up on our taxes. There's so much shit to worry about when it comes to being an entrepreneur. But one thing I can guarantee, if you don't sell your products and services, you're going to go out of business. That's true for everyone. If you're working for a company, I can't tell you the number of times I've gone in to train, do sales training in a company, and had half the room tell me that it wasn't their responsibility to sell.
It's everybody's response, like every single person's
Right.
responsibility to sell. Yeah.
It's just viewed so negatively. And that is
Why? So why is
100%
it
a mindset thing. That's a
why
mindset.
is it viewed? Is it because of that the tropes that we have grown up with and used car salesmen and time, timeshares? Like, why does sales have that? Like you said, we all buy stuff, and for some reason we have this cognitive dissonance that we're not being sold to, when in reality
Exactly.
that's all that's happening. So why is there that disconnect from and aversion to being seen as
I think
selling?
we don't like to be talked into buying something. We don't want to be talked into something. We don't want to be taken advantage of. And we're so judgmental of each other. If we think somebody didn't get a better deal, we jab them about it, and we give them a hard time about it. And people are so worried that they're going to be taken advantage of. There's a lot of folk, and there are a bunch of scammy things and people out there. And I think that they're mostly worried about that. And then you've got all the Glengarry, Glenn Ross, the Wolf of Wall Street, and all of that with this, all of the sales tactics that are come across as pushy and that frankly work. And so there's just this kind of antithesis, and asking for the sales difficult. People struggle with that. Asking for the business, asking for a referral. I can't tell you the number of coaching things, clients I've sat down with and them give me their full sales presentation, and at the end they're done, and that's just it. They don't ever ask for the business. They don't ever ask to schedule it. They don't ever ask. I mean, and they've been in business. They've done remarkably well for never actually saying, "Hey, can we schedule this for next week?" I mean, it's just as simple as that.
Talk about this. So I see that all the time too. But how do you overcome that mindset that pushiness wins? Or you said pushiness does win.
It's not really
It
a
does work.
pushiness that wins. The tactics that people use win. The the things they use, the methods they use to talk people into things. There are nefarious, if you have nefarious reasons for wanting to talk somebody into it, then you have to use those tactics, right? Sales is a transfer of enthusiasm. On its basic level, on its most wholesome level, it's a transfer of enthusiasm. Look what I have to offer. Look what I do. Look what I can sell you. Look how it will help you. I'm so excited about it. And then I get you excited about it too. Now you want one as well. Even advertising on television involves somebody excited that they have a product. On TikTok, on the TikTok shop, they're so excited to show you what I've got with the new face cream and it's enthusiasm. So you're probably old enough to get it, but sometimes people, when I say the first step is you have to drink the Kool-Aid, and no one gets that reference, but you have to really believe in your product and the service that you're providing. And it's easy to get discouraged, and it's easy to let one bad apple into your sales team, and that's like smoke, right? And it gets on you and it's everywhere, and now you can't get it off. And so you need to be able to control the smoke in your business and with your team so that it's positive, and it's framed in a mindset of, what do we do to help others? how does our product help somebody through their day? Why do people need our product? And when you're focused on those things and you're not pushy and convincing somebody that they need something that they don't, then that culture comes down when you really believe in your product. So that's really the key of it, is having that. So we're a lot of professional salespeople that I'm sure you've seen them too. You know, they used to sell for this company and now they sell for this company and now they sell for this company. And you rarely see them where they stay with one company for very long. And that's because
the pushy ones jump around
they really do.
where the essentially what you're talking about is this word that's overused, authenticity. You need to be authentically building trust and authentically solving somebody's so there's also different types of things that you're selling. If you're selling a timeshare, really the only thing that works is being pushy, right? Or selling a used car. Once they walk off the lot, you've lost their sale. But most sales aren't like that, right? I mean, that's an unusual, unfortunate circumstance where you put in a spot where you have to sell something now, or you're going to lose, or you're not going to put food on the table. Most of it's not like that.
Most of it's not there. I mean, it definitely exists, but as soon as you, as a business owner or a salesperson, get your mindset wrapped around, I financially need this sale to happen, now you've lost it. Now you're forcing and you are being pushy but you've lost the authenticity of it. And now you're so focused on lack and scarcity mindset that enthusiasm isn't even there that you're trying to transfer. And so maintaining the authenticity, and for me, I often talk about rings of authenticity. And what I mean by that is I do personality selling. So what kind of personality does this person have, this prospect that I'm talking to and I'm trying to sell? Are they a bottom line person? Are they somebody that's very neat and rule bound and structured, and so I better not be late? Or are they somebody that's a thinker and I'm going to think I can close them because they're so interested and they keep asking me for more information, but you're not going to close them. You're going to think that deal's dead, and 3 months later they're going to come back and they're going to be ready, but they're the thinker personality. So for me, I take that a little bit further and say how so we all have levels of authenticity, right? I see people all the time that are very, very, for me, they're really oversharing. I'm a Scorpio. I'm not an oversharer usually. And so they're public authentic personality, and
there is TMI in authenticity, isn't
right,
there?
But there's more than that. So how authentic do I have to be? How vulnerable do I have to be to earn this person's trust, based on how much authenticity do they need to get that social buy-in that it's a good idea? How authentic do I have to be? How vulnerable? How deep do I have to go into my personal self and authenticity for this person to trust me and me to build that type of relationship? And if you're dealing with a bottom line person that gave you 20 minutes for your appointment and you're 5 minutes late and they're not cutting you any slack, then hey, you don't have to go very deep in there because you don't have time for that and they don't want to hear that shit. But if you're looking at somebody that is more of an emotional personality and they view the world by how it affects them emotionally and they're very caregiving, then I might have to go pretty deep into my own vulnerability in order to bond with them and be able to sell to that person.
You're talking about essentially relationship selling, right? Really understanding and even going into Dale Carnegie's, How to Win Friends and Influence People kind of philosophies on having a conversation with folks. And I think that's really strong, but there's also this, so there's an and to that. And I think the and I'd like you to talk about is you're talking about how do you meet the person where they are, but also there's the solving the problem, solution-based selling, which is an
Mhm.
overused word. So can you talk a little bit about some of the tactics around what does it mean to be focused on a solution when you're selling and not features and benefits?
When you're talking about solution, it you're looking at the end, right? The end result of what the product does. And the first thing that popped into my mind, honestly, was I have this med spa and they love to do the photos and talk about the micro needling and the chemical peels and all of the things. And I'm like, I don't want to know any of that. That sounds horrifying. I don't want chemicals. I don't want any chemicals that are going to peel my skin off. So for me, I said, yes, there's plenty of people that have already done some of that. So they're not so intimidated by it. But if you want to get a woman in her 50s that has never done any of that in there, don't talk about poking 1,000 needles in their face, because that and how much money they're going to save and how this works better than that, because I don't want to see how the sausage is made. I just want to eat the sausage. So for that, I want to see the results of somebody that's my age that looks fantastic and the end result of it, the
Well,
solution.
to take that metaphor through, you're talking about solution-based selling is the result, selling the result,
Mm-hmm.
but also talk a little bit about how, a lot of salespeople will talk about themselves and not really understand the problem they're trying to, like, under listening. How do you figure out what problem you're trying to solve before you get to the solution?
Well, you're going to have, I mean, your products, you're going to have some that it is going to solve, right? So I sell advertising and marketing. So it solves some pretty specific problems, but they're different and the targets are different. So they have slightly different solutions to them. And gosh, I forgot the question.
No, it's about how do you, to talk about advertising,
Why?
right?
Because I wasn't listening.
So don't do that.
Right. It's really, I heard a
What I'm
terminology.
looking for is, like, how do you so when you're selling advertising, you have to understand what the business problems are. And most of the time, you think, okay, so business problems is I need more sales. But maybe that's not their problem. Maybe their problem is they want to build brand and they're not really looking for an ROI in their initial outlay. Or maybe they want to diversify their advertising channels and their sales channels. So you have to kind of dig into the problems that they're trying to solve. And how do you walk through some of the techniques, some of the questions that you might ask, and trying to understand the problem rather than jumping into what your solution is?
And for me, a lot of the time it's somebody will come and say, hey, I want to place some Facebook ads. And
Right.
because they think in their mind they know what they want to do. And I've talked to a bunch of people and they all agree that I need to be on social media and that's the next thing. And then when I start asking them questions about their business and being curious, and then I find out that they sell business to business. Facebook's, I don't know, probably not even in the top 5 of what I would have someone do if they were selling business to business. So for me, it's about listening with curiosity. I have to put that spin on it because my mind is just always going and I want to talk. And so I have to listen to be curious about their business. I'm curious. I want them to tell me everything and try to keep it in the mind of that rather than listening for how I'm going to respond to sell them. I really need to understand and know. So maybe they've already been posting and buying ads on social media and they're not working. And so what they need is, we need to look at why isn't it working? Who are your clients that you're targeting? Who are you trying to sell? Sometimes I'll break it out and we'll look at specific campaigns, specific media they've used, specific memes, specific posts, specific videos. What was the purpose of this video? Well, we were posting is a lot of times the answer. So I think it's important to ask questions that are going to lead them to tell you what they're doing. So what have you been doing to generate
Why? More
leads?
importantly, why? Why have you
Right.
been doing
How
what you're
many,
doing?
some really important questions for me are, once you do talk to somebody, how many of them do you close? How many of them become customers? Finding out that percentage, their close rate. Most people that are business owners will have a high close rate once they get to talk to someone because they started a business selling cupcakes or whatever. So they're a baker, they're passionate about that. So once they talk to somebody, they can usually sell them because that's what they love. So, but it's generating enough leads. So now we know that you don't need closing techniques. You're pretty good at that, but you're not prospecting. You need to generate leads. You don't have enough people to talk to. You don't have enough foot traffic coming into your store. Once people are in there, they spend a lot of money maybe. So you have to ask those questions to find the answers that you need. So those are the questions I need to know so that I can determine, are we trying to generate leads for this business? And then I can look and say, okay, what message are we using? Where are we putting that message? Who are we trying to target with that message? And on the sales side, how are we selling it once they come in? Sometimes you may have salespeople that are working leads and they're not closing them. So we have to look at those sales techniques within those individual salespeople. I don't think that's as common with entrepreneurs because an entrepreneur started a business for a reason. They typically have the sales once they get to that point.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Couple of things that I want to make sure that I capture and kind of acknowledge. One, this diving in to understand what the fundamental problem is, not essential. I used to do this early on in my career. Is they come to me and say, I want, I want to run some Facebook ads. And I'm like, great, we do that. And I just take and run with that. And like, hey, I closed a deal. But if you want to kind of dig into and understand the motivation, why that person is doing what they're doing, regardless if you're selling advertising or you're selling, HVAC installation services, you want to figure out why they're doing what they're doing and what their goals are. Some of them are really self-evident. Most of them aren't. The other thing that I see common that you kind of scratched on that entrepreneurs make, the common mistake is they'll take that first thing that they say is the thing and they'll go and solve that problem. And in reality, the bigger opportunity is if you just take and scratch a couple levels deeper. And like if they say I want to buy Facebook ads, why? Well, because I believe that we're gonna for every dollar we spend on advertising, we're gonna get $5 in return. Okay, now you have a goal. Now you have a metric to map up against, and maybe for their industry, you have data that can show them that Facebook might not be the right thing. Or before you do Facebook, you need to do a messaging. You need to do a reframing on your messaging, or there's or. And so showing that what they think they need to solve may not be, and scratching that layer deep, that's layer deeper can be very powerful. The other thing that I want you to dive a little bit deeper on is this notion of the founder is always the best salesperson. Always. You're never going to top the sales track record of the founder. And it's because, like you said, they fundamentally don't have a problem of belief.
Right.
They believe in what they're selling, and transferring that belief to salespeople, it's just not going to happen. So how do you see founders systematize that ethical sales practice as their business grows? Talk a little bit about how you move that down a level, so where me as a founder is not having to sell, and I can help other people sell on the company's behalf.
It really is lead from the top down. It really is. When you're first building your sales team, right, you may not have a sales manager. You may just you're going to start with just salespeople and you'll be the sales manager. But you have to have that culture, and it has to come from you. They have to see it from you and emulate it and know this is how Debra would deal with it. So this is how we're going to deal with it. And you can't waver from that message. And I'll give you a really good example. You have somebody coming in, you're getting beat up by that low cost provider. They're hitting every client you go to, they're going to for estimates too. And they're the low cost provider. So they're consistently cheaper than you are. And so your salesperson's coming in and they're beating you up over it. And how are we I want to lower the price. So if you've developed your sales culture and they understand that, and my answer is the same, and I tell clients this too, that's a good company. They are a good company for what they do. They are the low cost provider. If you want the very cheapest that you can get, that's where you should go. I'm never going to beat that price. We looked at that. We looked at that business model when we formed our business and decided, and we can't make money doing it that way, because the service that I want to provide, or that our founder believes in, we can't do it at that cost. We have to cut those corners. And that's fine for some people. They do a great job at what they do. But this is the way we do it. We have to price it this way. So leading with that, not giving in, but explaining why, giving them, role playing with them, helping them understand why you don't drop the price. If you drop it once, now you're stuck and you'll never beat the loss leader. You'll never beat them. That is their game. When they wrote their business plan, they said, we're going to be the low cost provider. No one's ever going to beat us. You have to make that up in volume. And so you have to come back around with quality. But that's a great example of how a founder is going to look at it. And you have salespeople coming to you getting beat by price. And boy, it's the first instinct to drop your price. So, but you have to stick with your culture and step over those dimes and pick up dollars, make a little bit more.
I think you said it
hard.
I think you said it really well. Fundamentally, you have to somehow find a way to transfer as much of that belief in what you're selling, in what you're doing, in the service and the problems you're actually solving, to your sales team.
You're
Price
selling
is
it to them. Let's
one.
face it. You are selling your vision to your employees, especially your sales people, but even your customer service people. When customers call in and they're upset, they have to have that vision too. You have to sell it to everyone. That's why it's a sales mindset. And it's not a sales mindset of sell, let's go. It's not that. It is your
always
culture.
Be closing.
Yes, it's your culture, your process, your pricing model, how you deal with competitors. All of those things go into building trust with your employees and your sales team, so that when they go out and pitch to people and talk to people about the services that you provide or products that you provide and how they help people, they believe they really are going to help. They know you're not going to screw people over because they've been sold, because they believe now too. You transferred the enthusiasm to them. Now it
is really interesting when you're the founder. I find this for myself anyway. When somebody decides not to go with the company, right? I always feel it is a flaw. Like, I think it's a flaw in their decision-making process. or me adequately connecting the dots to what their needs are and what we can deliver on. And usually that only comes after I've spent a lot of time with a customer. So there is this point at which, in the early process of a sales process, is qualifying like your job should be qualifying customers out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going through a series of questions and go, okay, why aren't they a fit, or why are they a fit for us? And if they're not, hey, we're not a fit for you. Here's somebody else. But once you've made that determination that you're the right fit, you almost have to be confused why they did, like really reflect and go, why? What did I do that didn't communicate the fact that they're an idiot for not choosing us?
Hey, and I'm a problem solver by nature. And so for me, it was always hard to give up, right? It's hard to let go of it because I can still teach you. You just don't get it yet.
You don't get it yet. Exactly right.
And every time I pushed it and I forced it, it
why aren't you saying this is the right decision for you?
Right. You obviously don't understand what I'm trying to tell you, Anthony. I don't understand why you won't. So I've done that so many times and it rarely works out. And so now here's a great mindset change for you, Anthony. When you start feeling that way, you just remember that when you don't get that customer, that is God saving you from a problem customer.
I will never believe that.
Every time I forced it, they turned in, they bitch about this, they nag about that. They're not a pleasure to work with.
That's true.
Regret it.
And that's true. Whenever I've cut my price to meet, like whenever I've dropped my pricing level in order to meet somebody's demand, or to just make sure I win the deal, that has always been true. So folks that just feel you're too expensive will wind up being very, very difficult clients. I agree with you on that, but yeah, almost every time.
And I had this client and they did a lot of stuff for free. They were for profit, but they had a charity portion of it. And they were like, oh, well, it's Complaint Friday. And I was like, what do you mean? Don't you do all your stuff for free? And he goes, yeah, that's the complaining day. The ones that get it for free. They complain more than anyone else because they got it for
there's
free.
No value associated with the thing that they're getting.
I definitely see that. So
yeah, awesome. All right, so we're gonna switch to the speed round. Right? So I have a series of questions, just a short answer, A or B, and we've got a couple of them. All right, so speed round. Here we go. So cold calls versus warm leads. Which should you prioritize?
Warm leads.
Product knowledge versus emotional connection. Which matters more?
Emotional connection.
Pitching versus listening.
Listening.
Hard close versus soft close. What's your go-to approach?
I have to say hard close. Soft close is weak sauce.
Love it. Love it. All right. Salesperson versus advisor. Which mindset wins?
Advisor.
That's a tough one. Advisor, you think so?
No.
So that conflicts with your hard close.
Well, that's the messaging, though, not the tactic.
You're right. So
I'm a marketing.
You're a hard closing advisor.
Well, if I'm coming in as an advisor with all of that messaging, then you don't realize I hard closed you.
I love it. All right, I'm gonna try to wrap this up and do my best here. There's a lot of great nuggets in this episode. So first key takeaway: sales is service. Reframing selling is helping. I think was a really good point. You have to believe in the product you're selling. That's foundational. If you or your salesperson don't believe in it, then you're not going to be able to sell it. You also said something, Debra, that I thought was really great: is match your selling style with the customer's type. So that rings of authenticity was really interesting. This other thing, like listen twice, speak once. Empathy is your strongest tool. Listening with curiosity was a really great nugget out of that. Authenticity over aggression. Build trust, not pressure. Confidence without arrogance. You said sales is a transfer of enthusiasm, which, man, that's something I never considered. But always kind of intuitively practiced, but never really got why that worked. But you're just transferring your enthusiasm. That goes back to the belief. I thought that was a really good point. Relationships are revenue for most sales. Focus on long-term connections and not the immediate close. Clarity sells. One thing we didn't really get into, but clarity sells. So make your offer simple, clear, and super easy to buy. And that brings me to the last point. Ask for the sale. You have to ask for it. You have to say, okay, next is when you open up your checkbook and we actually start working. If you don't do that, you'd be surprised how many closes happen just by asking for the sale. It is the most powerful message. All right, deep dive recommendations. So foundational books, Influence the Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. Another great book that I don't have the author to that just got, The Sales Bible is a great sales book as well. The Greatest Salesman in the World by Org Mandino. Fanatical Prospecting by Jeff Blount.
That's a great
and then a podcast
book.
Sorry?
Prospecting is hard for everybody. Nobody wants to do it. And always think about if you know, okay, this person doesn't need my service, I can't help them. And I can tell that they don't because I'm building a relationship with them, but I like them and I can tell that they like me. I'm turning that person into a referral source. So I'm not going to quit selling them. But now I'm talking about I really eliminated that pressure, right? Took everything down. I use it a lot. Do you know anyone that I could help that could use?
That's awesome. And by the way, I have somebody that can help you. Do you know anybody that I can help? That's a great tactic.
Especially if you're cold calling like phone and people that you know, and you're just kind of going through your list, connecting with them and just asking if they know anyone. They'll be so relieved that you don't want to sell them something that they'll give you someone's name.
Asking for help. Debra, I'd love. So tell everybody where they can learn more about you.
I have an advertising agency, so I am on all the social media platforms, but the best way to contact me is through my website, dealswithheels.com. You can find out more about my podcast there. I also have a free ebook that is available on actually my Hexagon Media website, and I will make sure Anthony has a link for that. It's titled 5 Steps to a Mindset for Success. And those are the actual 5 steps I took to change my life when I was at rock bottom. So I encourage you to download that. It will tell you a lot about how I came about my journey, and you'll have all my contact information there. My podcast is available on all platforms.
Amazing. Debra, thank you so much. So that's it for this episode of How to Founder. Next time we're talking about the importance of entrepreneurial curiosity. So getting into that curiosity thing a lot deeper. You can find us. Please follow us. Just go to howtofounder.com, and we're also available on all the platforms. Just follow us, subscribe, hit the like button, do all the things that you do to make us a good podcast. Again, thank you everybody tuning in. Thank you so much for making the show what it is by listening and chiming in as we have a conversation. Debra, thank you very much for joining us. And folks, we'll see you next time. Thank you, Debra.
Bye-bye. Thanks for having me.